Hey there, this is Kat Ramirez. I am CEO and founder of Advertise and hashtag Social Buzz. Thank you for joining me today. Uh, and so I'm super excited. But before I introduce my guest and what we have lined up today, I just want to, again, in case I had a lot of messages from people saying, Kat, where you been? Where you been? And so we have been a little bit of a growth spurt, which I am so proud to announce. Um, you know, after this pandemic, or we're still in this pandemic, but I have been very, very fortunate and we've gotten a little bit of a growth spurt. So I have been coaching and training some new team members. And so that has really taken up a lot of my time. But needless to say, we are back. And I am so thrilled and excited to introduce my guest today. And if you read in the notes, we are going to have JJ, and I forgot to ask him, but and I can apologize when I see him. It's is it Birden? He'll correct me when he comes on. Who was a former NFL player and now a motivational keynote speaker, and works with people. And I put the acronym on the notes if you were reading it. And so, and I asked people also if you're familiar with F.A.S.C.O, which is failures, adversity, setbacks, challenges, and obstacles. And he's a great person to talk about that because of his own personal challenges. And so we'll bring JJ on. Hey, JJ.
Hey, Kat, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, and I am so thrilled to have you.
Well, thanks for having me on the show.
And just so that anybody who's watching, and for your point of reference, JJ, we are on 5 different streams. We're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and 2 other Facebook pages. Okay, so
wow,
yes, so we're all over the place. So just for the sake of getting everybody up to speed, can you give people a little background about you and your story?
Little background on me. Well, first, thank you for having me on the show. This is the first time I've ever done a LinkedIn Live, and I'm usually all over social media, so this is kind of cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So a little bit, quick story. Born and raised Portland, Oregon. I went to the University of Oregon on a track scholarship. Little guy, played football. Everybody said I was too small. So when I got to Oregon my second year, I begged the football coach to let me walk on. He let me walk on. I made the team. I did both sports when I was at Oregon. And I was a track guy, so I was trying to make the Olympic team. I had qualified in the 1980 Olympic trials in the long jump. To my surprise, I got drafted in the NFL draft, which caught me by surprise because I didn't have great stats as a college player. But when I was drafted by the Cleveland Browns, I tore up my ACL ligament in the mini camp. So
wow.
Track was done. I went and graduated, and then it was hello NFL. And what turned to be, I guess, something I thought I'd never do, I focused on that and went on to play 9 years in the league and retired in 97. I've been married to my college sweetheart, Raina. Will be 30-year anniversary in 16 days.
Oh, congratulations.
So, thank you. Thank you. And we have 8 children, 3 biological children, and we adopted 5 nieces and nephews 13 years ago. So our family expanded quickly overnight, but it's been a joy to be able to make an impact on our nieces and nephews. But now I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm a speaker, author, coach. I have an online business, and I'm just all about helping people maximize their opportunities and achieve the goals that are important to them.
That is fantastic. That is awesome. So so can you explain the whole F.A.S.C.O theory and what it is that you're doing with that? And I apologize.
So F.A.S.C.O was an acronym I came up with because every time I was giving a keynote or I was training someone or I was sharing content, I would individually use the words, failures, and another time it was adversity, another time it was setback, and challenges and obstacles. And one day I just thought to myself, these words all really mean the same. They really do. It's when something unexpected happens in your life that you're not prepared for, or something that's blocking you from achieving your goal. It could be a difficulty, it could be a struggle, it could be a letdown. It's when something's in the way that's testing you to see how bad you really want the goal.
Yep.
And one day I just got on my whiteboard and I just start throwing letters up there, and I came up with the acronym FASCO, because that's really what I'm all about when it comes to sharing content, because I feel I'm the poster child of overcoming FASCO. And I know that many people struggle with it in different areas of their life. So a lot of my content revolves around helping people conquer those FASCOs and go on to accomplish great things. And so I really love it because it's been my journey, conquering
Right.
FASCO.
Right. And it makes sense. And I think a lot of people can relate to the different elements of your FASCO because at some point in their life. And I would say, especially now, because we're going through the pandemic, and, in some situations, some people have like overcome it or passed the hill, whereas a lot of companies are still, in the sidelines and just waiting by the rafters and stuff. And it just depends on people's mindset too. So if I talk to different businesses and organizations, their outcomes or what they are dealing with today are going to be like their own also personal obstacles as well. Because, as I had another guest on, her big thing was you have an opportunity to create a new revenue stream. You have an opportunity to create a new product, a new service. You have an opportunity to do something. What are you going to do with this adversity or obstacle that you are dealt with, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's about how do you have the mindset to see what your current situation is, and then what can you do to make it a positive moving forward,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great assessment of what's going on right now, because we are dealing with uncertainty. It's
Right.
definitely FASCO, and a lot of people deal with it differently. And it's one of the messages I've been trying to convey to people that, okay, all right, here's what's going on, but let's just really analyze this. And I think you said the first thing that is important is mindset. Let's get our mind right here, okay? It's not the end of the world. We're still here. There's still opportunities. Let's have a positive mindset. And then really look at the situation. What is really going on? Assess it. And then from there, you really got to put together a game plan and go to work and do these other things. But I see it. I mean, it's like when I was in the NFL, I got cut a couple times, and instead of thinking that it's the end of my career, I
Right.
looked at the situation. I was healthy. Other teams called me, and I took advantage of those next opportunities that came up. And it all started here.
Yep.
I had to have a positive mindset, because when you got a positive mindset, it really separates the best from the rest. You're always in that right frame of mind.
Right. And I agree. And so you just touch on a few things that are really, really important, and I think people should think about and keep on the forefront. And one of the things that I think about when we talk about businesses and adversity and objections is how people cope with their team, right? Because ultimately it's change. So you're going to have change. I know in my organization, I had huge changes, like major. And some organizations maybe didn't have as many because they were already in the status quo. They were already working from home. They were already doing the things that are forcing people to work in that change now. And so for my organization, they're actually comfortable with the change and they love it. Whereas I think some people aren't, because they love the social engagement in the office. So I think there's going to be some probably riff or some things happen as a result of this from teams. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the cohesiveness and that feel of I'm a part of this unity, which when you're remote, you may not feel. Whereas when you're in these organizations where you're in these big, complexes, you do feel that. And
Yeah.
so that's going to have a huge I would think, falling out as we keep progressing forward.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that that's a big change for everyone, and but right now we can't really control it. We can do some Zoom and we can do other things, but we can't really control it. So it's like focus on what you can control. It's like control what you can control. And
Right.
that's really what I try to do. It's like, what can I control when I wake up today? I can do my job, I can reach out to my customers, I can support my team
Yep.
until things change. And I want to get really good at and master what I can do right now.
Yep. Yep. So I bet there's a lot of things that you were taught and trained in the NFL as an athlete that you probably apply and coach and train businesses and companies in the same kind of realm, I would imagine, that helps
Yeah.
them. Okay. That's what I would imagine because I'm a former Air Force veteran. Okay. And so I will tell you
Mhm.
that for a fact that whatever I learned in the military is what helps my success with my company or anything else I do, just because of that structure. I mean, like major structure. But I would think the NFL or any sports is no different. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you're putting in place into routines and standards and things like that that help create that positive and that winning environment.
Yeah, yeah. That's an accurate assessment because when you think about the NFL, you're talking about some of the best athletes in the world, and you're talking about 1,696 men out of however many are million are playing football are on an active NFL roster. So to
Right.
make it to the NFL is hard enough, and to stay there is just as impossible. So there are certain qualities and characteristics and routines and things you have to be consistent about because if you don't, Kat, there's always somebody right
Oh
behind
yeah.
you ready to
Oh
take
yeah.
your job.
Right. Right.
So I try to convey that to the corporate, the businesses I speak to,
Mhm.
because they want to perform at a high level, and we were at a high level, and I let them know this is what it takes to perform at a high level. Everybody wants to get there, but not everybody's willing to sacrifice and do what it takes to make it and stay there.
Right, right. And you just hit it the hammer on the nail because it is about sacrifice and it is about, what is it that you're willing to do in order to get there. So let me just do some shout outs before we keep moving on. And if anybody has any comments for JJ, and JJ, did I say your name wrong? How do you say last name?
Yeah, Burden. Like I'm a
Burden. That's what I
burden.
thought. Burden. Okay. So JJ, if anybody has any questions for him, please drop a line. But David says, hello, David. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Jackie says, good morning. Thank you for watching, Jackie. And then David also says, I love your dog. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So just as a reminder to anybody who just tuned in or is tuning in, we have JJ Birden, who is a keynote speaker and ex-NFL, and we're talking about F.A.S.C.O. So we're talking about ways to overcome any adversity, objections, obstacles, setbacks, things that have created challenges in your life or your work or your business. And what better timing than now because of the current pandemic? And then let's talk about the other situation that's happening that is really horrible right now is the whole police thing with people in the outbursts and things like that, and you see it more on social media than ever in any other place. And so, to me, that is a little bit of an adversity that's public, that's out there. And I feel like people have a right to voice their opinion and people have a right to stand tall. But I think when we talk about pandemic and we talk about the world unifying, the whole together we stand together we stand strong, it should be the message as opposed to people, and their outbursts. Because the reality is not everybody is perfect and not everybody is going to do the right thing. And so it's about us focusing on what good is out there and what can we do, me as a person, me as a business, and anybody else out there who wants to support, me and my world, or I support any of the businesses and their world. And so I think so if we think about the F.A.S.C.O, we think about it in our personal lives and in our business lives because it is surrounding us every single day.
Yeah.
And I think the thing for people is the ability to be able to reach out and probably unify with other people that have the same strengths and beliefs and things that we all want to unify together, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it really helps. I tell you, they need community. People need a positive community. They need a positive tribe. It's like you said earlier, who you hang out with, and the people I hang out with are very positive. They're very professional. They're very uplifting. They encourage me, and a lot of people need that today. And it's like,
Yep.
community is a big deal, and that's why I think one of the reasons why social media and the groups are so big right now, because people want to be a part of that positive community.
And I would have to agree. So you wrote a book, JJ. Tell us about your book. Yay!
Yeah, and I don't know if you know, this is the 4-year anniversary of me. I released my book 4 years ago this week.
Okay. Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've got a lot of good anniversaries coming up. I got a good time.
This was really cool because Kat, this was always a dream of mine, was to become an author. And I remember when I was in the NFL, I talked about being an author, and I didn't know how and when I was going to do it, but I met a gentleman, Dr. Will Moreland, speaker, trainer, coach, about 5 years ago, and he became my mentor and really walked me through the process of writing a book, launching my speaking career. And I wrote When Opportunity Knocks, 8 Surefire Ways to Take Advantage. And it's really all about seizing your opportunities in life, seizing the goals and the moments that can really change your life. Because, again, I think I'm the poster child of seizing and maximizing opportunities. So, so very proud of it. But the other thing I tell you that gets me excited, this was my first book, and I have the outline in place for book number 2.
Okay.
Because when you do something the first time, you're proud of it, you do pretty well, but you'll learn a lot. So I can't wait to write book number 2. So I'm excited about that one.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So what is the name of book number 2?
Well, I don't have the title, but trust me when I say it'll have something to do with F.A.S.C.O. It'll have something to do about F.A.S.C.O and being the underdog, and in spite of the challenges, to be in that area there. I haven't given a title, but I know where I want to go, and that's a subject matter that's dear to me, as why we're talking about it now.
Okay. So you talk about that you have 8 takeaways from playing with the Hall of Fame quarterback, Joe Montana. Okay. So I have to bring that up. So can you share that, or is that proprietary, or what is that?
Well, I'll share a couple of them with you. I do share it on my website. When people sign up for my newsletter, the Birden Report, they get all 8 of them.
Okay. So I'll share them all then. I'll share them all.
Yeah, I'll definitely share some now. And let me just say, too, playing with Joe Montana was a thrill, because here's one of the greatest athletes to ever, play the game. And I was in the 8th grade when Joe was throwing touchdown passes for San Francisco, and then I'm in the huddle with him in Kansas City. That was just like, it was one of those, that's Joe Montana moments, It was like, but success leaves clues. And I said, you know what? I'm going to watch this guy and see what I could learn from him. And there was a couple of things that really stood out. One was his preparation. Joe was already an accomplished player. We ran the same offense in Kansas City that they ran in San Francisco, but I would always see Joe studying the plays. And I remember asking him one time, I said, Joe, don't you already know the plays?
Right.
He said, yes, I do know the plays, but I study them so I can memorize half of the plays so that the coaches only give me the other half. And he says it gets us out of the huddle a lot faster, and I know whether or not I need to change the play on the line. And so I could see how Joe was always a step ahead of the defense, that it was always his preparation. And it forced me to improve my preparation as well as I went into each game. He was, I'd say he was very, oh my goodness, the guy never gave up. I mean, he was relentless. And what I mean is that he was 37 years old when he played with us. He was banged up, but I would see him get knocked around in games, and he's on the ground and he's barely moving, and he just would not quit. And that leadership in every game when we were behind, we would see how Joe would not quit. And it just propelled us to finish strong and play well. And there were so many games that we would win in the end.
Right.
And a lot of times it had to do with Joe's leadership and how he never gave up and very attention to detail. He's very precise and very methodical about everything. And I mean, even how he threw us the ball. I mean, Kat, like if he threw it on my right shoulder, he was telling me a defensive player was coming this way, so you need to turn that way. If he threw it on my left shoulder, turn that way. It was these little things. It was always painstaking attention to the details, but those little details really mattered. But just a lot of little things he did that you could clearly see that ever play.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. And again, I think this again resonates with the whole, I think athletes are a unique model because they're trained to be fierce. They're trained to have this unrelentless drive, And so I think, how cool is that? Do you speak to a lot of like sales teams?
Yeah, I do. I do speak to a lot of sales teams. And I share a lot of the different principles I think that could help them. And I think one of the things you said is important because, like, as athletes, I think one of the biggest things, especially for a football player, just our ability to adapt to change. Yeah. And I think some people struggle with that. Like right now, we're having to deal with making adjustments. But when you're in a football game and there's 80-something plays, no play goes perfectly. There's always curveballs. There's always unexpected things. And we developed a habit of adapting to change on the fly and not even skipping a beat. Yeah. So it's just showing salespeople and others how to be able to adapt and still make those split-second decisions under pressure. And that's what we were able to do. Split-second decisions under pressure. And I think, as I've talked to salespeople more and more, that's one of the points I like to stress with them.
Yep. Yeah. Because I would think, again, I'm a big fan of, I use sports in my whole way of talking. I'm a sales manager of 27 years. And something I was trained, the dialogue I was trained from another sales manager was, hey, Kat, we block and tackle, and basically it's the strategy that you take when you're performing or doing your job, as opposed to, being a kind of a tactical person, you're more strategic where you block and tackle, and it's just like what you said with Joe Montana. And that's why I can resonate with it is he had a strategy in place and he was going to divert that and change that based on the situation that he had, but yeah, the cool thing is he had the ability to,
Yeah. And what I recognize about Joe is like in the NFL, we have game plans. So every week we have a game plan. There's always a plan in place. Joe would have his own personal game plan for that particular game, which taught me that, JJ needs to have his own personal game plan. Right. I mean, it's like when I was going against Deion Sanders. Yep. You probably heard of Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
One of the best to ever play. Amazing athlete. And I remember how I studied all Deion's film and I had to come up with some kind of game plan because he was already a superior athlete. But I remember going into that game, having a specific game plan. Then it's the ability to execute it. It's the same as sales. What's your game plan for the day, for the week? Okay. Yep. Then it's just a matter of executing. And I think one of the things that separates the pros from the amateurs is that anyone can complete a game plan or create a game plan, but can you execute the game plan? Can you produce the results? And in the NFL, that was the difference between whether you made the team or whether you're watching the game from your sofa on Sunday.
Yeah. Nope, that makes total sense. And also, I think what also makes sense is, and I was thinking about this as you were talking, because I was like, oh yeah, bing, 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 bing. It's your own personal, and this probably goes to what you speak about in the whole F.A.S.C.O is, you are your biggest enemy. I am my biggest enemy. I'm the one that's going to talk me out of something. I'm going to throw up those obstacles. I'm going to throw up probably the biggest objections that I will encounter because of my own, mental demons or whatever you want to call them, because of how I was trained or how I deal with situations. And I think the thing I got from your website is it's a process of reteaching yourself, right? It's a process of building that confidence so that you can overcome these things, but also being tuned in too, right? Because sometimes we're not tuned in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you said, because you're right. Because what I try to teach is, now let's flip that. And you need to be your biggest fan. You need to be your biggest supporter. You need to be your biggest believer. And as you mentioned at the beginning of this, all starts with how you think. And I tell people that you got to get your head in the game. What does that mean? You have to be able to master your thinking. Your thought process, your mindset. You can't be on the sideline. You got to be in the game, and you got to be able to control your thinking, because as professional athletes, we were trained.
Yeah.
When a play is called for me, I get so many thoughts could go through my head. I'm really small. That guy's big. He's going to hurt me. No, you block it out, run your 12 yards, focus on the ball, and catch the ball.
Yep.
And the same applies in the business world too, being able to really master your thoughts, because, our thoughts become our actions, right? So whatever we're thinking is what we're going to believe and what we're going to do. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because again, this comes back to what you mentioned a little bit in the beginning, and what I kind of alluded to a little bit, is that you weren't the biggest guy. So if you looked out on that team and you said, hey, I'm up against that big guy and this guy and this guy, you could crush yourself before you even started the game, right? By mentally beating yourself up, literally.
Yeah. Being an underdog is something that I've been an underdog, but I also think that everybody at some point in their life has felt like an underdog.
Oh yeah.
2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with someone, and they were talking about how they felt like an underdog because the person they sat next to them went to some high prestigious university, and they graduated from a small college, and they sat next to each other.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, okay, if they all think you're an underdog, you can't control that. But you don't believe you're an underdog, and you give them a reason to change that thought process. And that's what I went through when everybody said you're too small and you shouldn't play college ball. And I just said, I'll show you. And I changed everybody's thinking. But it was a process. And I'll tell you, Kat, there was a process when I didn't believe. And one thing I teach to people, I say, if your belief is not where it needs to be, you need to borrow the belief of someone else who believes in you until you get your belief where it needs to be.
I love that. That's awesome.
And that was my uncle. My uncle, my junior in high school, said I'd play in the NFL, and I thought he was crazy. And he made me promise to give him my first NFL touchdown. I still thought he was crazy.
Yep.
But he got my first NFL touchdown, and he told me, he goes, I had to pour belief into you, JJ, until you got your belief where it needed to be, and you could ride your way to the top. And he was right. But, sometimes that's why we got to have mentors and coaches and people we can go to for that, Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I love that. Okay, so another thing that I truly believe in, that I know sports teaches and other things like that, is you have to practice. Like, here's the thing I run into is people and business owners and CEOs and stuff that are stagnant, that don't improve their self, don't improve their game, they're not doing anything to take themselves to the next level. They want to take their business, they want to take themselves to the next level, but they're not doing anything actively, right? Because as an athlete, you're practice, right? When you're not in the season, you're practicing for the season, right? That's the whole job.
Right.
You're always practicing. And I think people need to think like that,
Yeah, 100% agree there. I was a wide receiver, and I was catching that little leather ball 100, 200, 300 times a day, whether I was at practice or whether I was on my own. And when I got into my 9th year, I didn't think, well, hey, I've been a receiver for 9 years. I don't need to continue to work on this skill set. No, I continued to work on it, because mastery is all about practice. You got to be willing to put in the time to master it. And when you do, you have to stay consistent. And I think you make a great point, because some I've talked to in the business world, I remember I would ask them and I'd say, how much time do you spend mastering communication? That's a skill set. How much time do you really spend mastering and working on that? And I was surprised a lot of them didn't really work on it, But like you said, you have to have that mentality as an athlete, because as soon as you let off,
oh yeah,
you're exposed. They see it on film. And again, here comes that next guy, comes to take your job.
Right, right. And it's the same thing for the real world, and I'm not saying that the NFL is not the real world, just so you know.
Right.
But it's the same thing in play, for businesses and CEOs and presidents and leaders is you have to practice. If I was taught anything in sales is, practice your craft, practice your game, and keep at it. Like, don't think that, oh, I was trained and now I can do this, forever. Doctors have to be trained and coach all the time, nurses and, attorneys have to retake and retest, everybody does. And so that doesn't make it like, just because I'm a salesperson, I just doesn't prevail to me. Yeah, it does. You know what I mean? Like it happens for any entrepreneur business. Anybody wants to grow their craft. Anybody wants to grow their business, And I think that they need to really feed into that.
Yeah, and that was another point I shared about Joe Montana. This is another one. You talk about someone who had the ability to keep pushing himself and avoid complacency.
Yep.
I mean, because when he came in, I'm thinking like, okay, 4 Super Bowls, MVP, he's got all these accolades. How is he going to come in? And Joe came in, he studied like a rookie, he prepared like a veteran, and he performed like a pro. He was always working on the skill sets, always trying to get better. And that was one thing that really impressed me because there was always that drive. How can I get better? How can I improve? And that's where sometimes people let off a little bit. You have a great week, you have a great year, you have a great 10 years, and you get complacent. So I think that's an important point. And as athletes, again, we had to have that mindset if we wanted to continue to play. The average NFL player's career lasts less than 2 years.
Wow.
There's a reason why.
Wow.
One of those is the ability to continue, the lack of ability to keep pushing yourself.
To keep pushing, yeah. So I'm just going to also touch on something that you just said, and I'm just going to grasp and hang on to it, okay? I think a lot of this is leadership because he was a leader for you. And you obviously looked up to him and you were drawn to his leadership. And I think that to me is a very powerful message here is if it takes from the top down, right?
Yeah.
Like if your leaders are doing the things that they're asking you to do, hands down, they'll do it, right? They're going to do it. Yeah,
that is a powerful point. And when I think about Joe, there's a saying out there, it goes, there is no I in team. Well, I flip that around. I say, there better be an I in team. Because if you're a leader, you better set the pace first. Right. You better set the tempo first. You better do your job. Because if you do your job, those other ones who want it, who right there, they will come right along with you. And that's what Joe was able to do. I can remember we were playing a Monday night game against the Denver Broncos. We're down by like a touchdown, and it's 1.5 minutes left in the game. And I remember previous years in this situation, we're going against Elway. We always lose. This time, here comes Joe. He comes into the huddle. He says, okay, guys, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to win this game and get out of here. It's cold. Let's go. But it was like the way he said it and the way he led us. We marched down that field. We won that game and went home. But it's leadership. Positive leadership is very contagious,
Yes. Yeah. I think businesses need to understand and know that because there are a lot of businesses run by people that probably should not be the leader. And then there's businesses that have leaders that just need to be led to that positive change. Because the potential's there, the team's there. It's just having that leadership in place, and again, I can revert this to when I was in the military because, I looked up to my superiors and I had this sense of my chain of command. I had a chain of command kind of mentality, I'm going to use my chain of command. I'm going to, follow by my chain of command, and things like that. And if I had a very strong leader that was like, that just knocked me out of the park because I'm just going to follow,
Yeah.
And really it's like you said, it's really just, you tell me to do it, I'll do it. You tell me, jump, I'll say how high,
In my entire life, I've always responded better to people who've walked the walk and talked the talk, who walked the path that I'm on, or they've already achieved what I want and they're leading by example. You
Yes.
know, it's like as a track and field athlete, my best coaches were the coaches who ran the workouts with me. I had
Right.
this one coach named Von Ray Johnson. He was about 20 years older than me, but he would run those intervals with me, and I'd see, man, he's doing it. And it would just motivate me to run harder, to work harder, to be up there with him.
Yep.
And so I've always tried to follow suit. You know, if I'm working with someone and I want them to do something, I'm already doing it myself. You know, I'm
Yeah.
already leading from the front, you know, setting that pace.
Yeah. Okay, JJ, as we wrap this up, so I'm just curious, this is like a personal question. Are any of your children athletes? Or
Good question. Actually, no.
no? Okay.
Actually, no. My children didn't gravitate that way, and I didn't
Okay.
push them to go that
Good for
way. And
you. Yep.
I wanted them. They're doing well, and I had 3 of my children were married 3 years ago, all in
Okay.
the same year.
Okay.
February,
Wow.
February, 2 in May.
Wow.
My middle son Dante and his wife Emma just had their first child, so we're now grandparents. I'm
Yep.
actually grandpops now, so
Okay.
um,
That's awesome.
yeah. So
That's
the family's growing.
Oh, good, good, good. I'm always curious as to how parents, help their children blossom and stuff. And, everybody's different. And we're trying to make ours a golf, you know.
Well, your plan, it sounds like you're pretty good from what I mean.
I know
your
I'm
plan.
not good. I'm not good. I try to be. I'm really good at faking it. Okay, so how do people get a hold of you? And I know that the eight right takeaways are there on the website, which I would highly recommend because I will sign up for that. I think I was in really really lured to a couple of the takeaways you gave today, so I think they'll be really good takeaways.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, and I do a monthly motivational newsletter. I'm not one of those who just shoots a newsletter out like every couple of days. I don't have time for that. So usually about once a month I'll give something motivational, and so that's the other that comes with that. But yeah, my website jjbirden.com. That's the hub.
I'm gonna
I'm
bring
all
it up.
over. Yeah, there we go. Oh, nice share.
Yeah.
I'm all over social media. I love to interact. I love to share positive content to just give people action steps, to conquer those goals.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely connect with me on social media.
And then if they're a company, how do they get a hold of you? What's the process? Do they connect with you on LinkedIn? Do they just go to your website? Because I would imagine you're probably an awesome keynote speaker.
Well, thank you. I'm working on it. Working on my craft. But yeah, they can go to my website under contacts. I have a speaker agent, Shannon Dowry, so she handles a lot of that for me. And if people contact me through LinkedIn, I get them in contact with Shannon because it's things are getting a little busy in a positive way. So It's nice to have someone like Shannon who can communicate with them. But yeah, that's the best way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So again, we had JJ Birden. He is a keynote speaker, author, and ex-NFL player, and had some really good conversations about F.A.S.C.O. And if you don't know what F.A.S.C.O is, you're going to have to just rewind and watch. And continue to leave your comments. I will tag you, JJ. That way you can see any comments. And I actually do review them. If they ask you a personal question, I'll tag you again. Okay.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I'll definitely answer those.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and happy anniversary 2 times.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm very proud of that. Almost 30 years,
I know, that's awesome.
Awesome. That's a nice milestone,
It is.
But thank you too. Thank you for giving me the platform, the opportunity to share. And I love what you're doing. I mean, we need that positive energy, that positive content to really lift people up and get them in the right mindset to go on to do some great things,
I agree, especially with all the things that we have been challenged with. I totally agree. Okay, thanks everybody, and appreciate for tuning in. Again, if you have any questions for JJ, just drop a line and we'll tag him. Appreciate it. Have a great day.